Congressman Dean Phillips, Democrat from Minnesota, part of a group pushing a bipartisan relief bill. Respect it. Congressman, thank you for coming on Primetime.
Good to be with you, Chris.
And again, I know you talked to Dusty. The offer stands, okay? But you can't ignore what you guys are up against in the Democratic Party and what, frankly, a lot of still Republicans are up against. If they will leave rather than have to discuss the fact that Biden won the election, how do you expect to get a deal?
Well, you know, Chris, that's why Dusty and I are both here. And I've listened to you tonight, and I want to start by letting you know and everybody watching know that there are people here in a place filled with actors and so little action. There are a group of us, Democrats and Republicans, Dusty's among them, that sit down together once a week in a place that has institutionalized separation. And we make it our intention to get together, get to know each other, trust one another, and try to rise to the occasion in times just like these. Yeah, I'm really frustrated with my party, and I'm really frustrated with the other party, and I'm really frustrated with the White House. And that's a perception that's shared by very many. The Problem Solvers Caucus came out with a plan, as you know, Chris. First of all, the House voted on 2 bills since the CARES Act, Heroes 1 and Heroes 2. We have been doing the work. Problem Solvers Caucus came up with a march to common ground. Dusty and I co-led that effort with our co-chairs, Tom Reed and Josh Gottheimer. We came up with a plan. It was celebrated by rank-and-file House members, rank-and-file senators. Even the White House liked it. Of course, it went nowhere.
Why?
And then nothing happened before the election. Well, you know this place just as well as I do, Chris. Look, I was watching the election in 2016. I had a comfortable life. I owned a business, was very happy in Minneapolis. I watched my daughter's reaction that night in 2016. And I woke up the next morning, I sat at the breakfast table, and I promised them I would do something. And a lot of us who won the elections in 2018 had the same reaction that night. We're here for the same reason, because we're sick of it. And I can tell you, you know as well as I do, the 12 million people who are going to lose their unemployment after the holidays, after Christmas, do you think they really care about what Donald Trump is saying today? Do you think the people whose small business is closing tomorrow because they can't make ends meet, can't pay the rent, put their whole life savings into their business, do you think they really care about the stuff that so many are talking about on Twitter? No. They care about help. And to your point, that's what we are supposed to do. I am sick of the inactivity. I don't know how long my career will be here, but darn it, I'm going to fall on the sword and do my very best to get some help to people who deserve it, who need it, because that is what this country is about.
What's the best answer of why the extraordinary need that has been taking place for months wasn't enough to move the needle?
Chris, I might be on my deathbed someday and still be trying to understand why. This place does not function the way most Americans would expect it to, the way that they deserve. America deserves its Congress to work.
But
I wish I could explain
Dean,
it.
I hear you about that as a culture, but let's get to more of the granular thing. I don't understand what the argument is for no more checks to people. Is it because they believe there's enough money in the support programs that will catch that need? Is it just about the price tag? I mean, why no more checks for people when you know that they need it, not just because they're in poverty, but they're that paycheck away from being in poverty?
Well, I think you'll have to ask Leader McConnell that specific question. But let me tell you this, Chris, there's actually more bipartisan support for stimulus checks because, you know, we know that consumption is the engine of the economy and money in people's pockets is the fuel. That is something that unifies Democrats and Republicans. That's why stimulus checks were in the first bill. The president actually supports stimulus checks, perhaps because his name was on them, of course. I don't know if this bill that we're working on right now, this bipartisan bicameral bill, will include them. Of course, the Senate's going to play a big role in determining if that's the case. But would I like to personally see them? Of course. That's what people deserve, because actually it will cost us less if we do that now than it will later. And most of all, it's compassionate. And if we don't do it, Chris, geez, I just don't understand why we are unwilling, to your point, to help people in the worst crisis I've known in my lifetime, and I'm sure yours.
Well, look, Joe Manchin says he can't get the stimulus payments to families done, that it's a non-starter for people on the right. Look, I would have loved to have talked to Dusty about it. I believe you that he meets. I believe that he wants better. I've never heard any bad stink on him, but he made the decision not to come on tonight. You know, it's not like we had an argument or something. I never even spoke to him. But how can I have a Republican on the show and not even ask, hey, by the way, are you one of these guys that don't think Biden won? You know, I mean, if there's that level of resistance, Dean, I know you're coming from the private sector, But if you have that built-in kind of animus, they're not going to do anything with you because they don't want to give a win to a side that is seen as the enemy these days.
Chris,
but look, that's the
true.
culture.
Yeah, I got it.
Go ahead.
It is the culture, but that's what makes our little group unique. The Problem Solvers Caucus, 50 of us, 25 Democrats, 25 Republicans. Dusty Johnson doesn't have to sit at the Problem Solvers Caucus table. It's probably more politically rewarding for him not to, but he chooses to.
But he didn't have
he
to
is
bail
one of the
tonight.
handful.
He didn't have to bail tonight. He could have come here. He could have said, look, the election's over. The guy won. Let's worry about the people who are starving, Chris. I thought you cared about them. And the conversation goes on. That's it.
Chris, let me just say, though, Dusty is my friend. He's my partner in this effort. If this bill gets done ultimately, Dusty Johnson will have played a significant role in making it happen. And along, by the way, Dusty is one of that very handful in the House, the Republicans, that have actually said that the election transition should start happening. And by the way, most of them are on the Problem Solvers Caucus. Anthony Gonzalez, Tom Reed, Fred Upton, Brian Fitzpatrick, Denver Riggleman, another, not on the Problem Solvers Caucus, but another one, Adam Kinzinger, of course. There are some. Most of them on the Problem Solvers Caucus. We are the people here for the reason to help people. And look,
I have no problem.
You could have asked 100 other members of... You could have asked 100 other members of Congress to come on tonight to throw stones at one another. I would argue today, tonight, tomorrow, until we get this done, we got to focus on one thing, and it's the good in people and finding some darn way for rank and file members that have a lot of darn power in their hands, if we're willing to exercise it and stick together at some political cost, mind you. This is the time. That's why we're here. It's time to get it done.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. You are welcome here. The whole phalanx of the problem solvers have always been welcome on the show. I've had Reed on. I've had others on. The invitation is there. But when you bail because you don't even want to address something that may offend Trump when he's not even going to be president anymore, it speaks to a problem that is going to stop progress. Congressman Dean Phillips,
well, let me say something, Chris.
You are welcome.
Can I say one more thing?
Please, sir.
I tell you, a lot of my colleagues, I heard Dana Bash say earlier that privately and publicly many Republicans are saying that December 14th is the date. And by the way, it is. That's when all bets are off. That's when the Electoral College will actually affirm the election. In the meantime, I have to share some human truth. There are a lot of my colleagues, decent people, who are getting death threats, whose families are being attacked, both online and offline. And we've all seen, you've seen, I've seen, what happens when anybody says even a remotely negative word about President Donald Trump. And I'm afraid that the people who have had the courage to speak some truth, perhaps step out of line a little bit in the spirit of truth, what they are receiving because of this president, let's actually put the burden on the person who really deserves it right now. Okay. It is this president. By the way, and I would say dangerous at best, treasonous at worst, what he's doing. I think you and I might agree with that. But for those who are receiving death threats to their family because they're speaking truth, I have to have a little bit of understanding about what's happening right now.
I get it.
December 14th, all bets are off.
I get it. Believe me, more than you know. I understand what the price is for standing up to power at this point in time. But you got to be on the right side of history. And if you're going to go down, you should go down fighting for what matters. And Congressman Dean Phillips, you are welcome here to make the case. This isn't going to end today or tomorrow. I will extend an invitation, and you have an open one, to come back and say, hey, here's what they won't do. Here's what's wrong. Here's what's right. You are welcome. So is Dusty Johnson. Okay?
And we'll be back. I'm sure we will.
I hope so. Good luck. Get the job done. We'll be right back.